My guest today is a very good friend of mine. He is a staple in our community of music. He is responsible for putting out and producing a lot of tracks locally. Give it up for my man, Jeremy of Cosmic Soup Recording, everybody.
Oh, thank you.
Woo!
It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm so glad.
Yeah, thanks for coming out for episode 1.
I love what you're doing.
Thanks,
Yes.
buddy.
Oh, the honor is all mine. I'm so happy with what you're doing, and I'm happy that this is finally getting off the ground here.
Dude, it's been a lot of work. I'm really excited about it. Like I playing all this music and playing these shows. I mean, when shows happened, I feel like I met so many interesting people like yourself that we've had conversations I wish were recorded or.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? I wanted to start sharing these conversations with everybody, and especially you. Cosmic Soup Recording. This is a huge deal right
Yes.
now.
Right.
You do Cosmic Super Recording, you do Two Pimps No Hoes podcast, you play in Torn at the Seam, you play in No Composure, and you used to play in Contradiction. How does this start? Where does it all start?
Wow, that's a great question. I mean, it all started in my mom's garage, really. I met Billy Russell over 10 years ago, but I was doing live sound around town, and they were one of the bands that would play a lot, and so we formed a friendship, and then I said, hey, I really like you guys. Like, a buddy of mine has a little home studio. I'd love to, record you guys. And so we recorded the Sounds of the Street album. Half of it was recorded at my friend Ricardo's home studio, and then the other half was recorded in my mom's garage. And it turned out really good, and we stayed friends after that. And then, as me and Billy would hang out more, like I'd kind of play him some of the stuff that I was working on, which was a little bit more, hip hop, rap, rock type stuff, and he, loved it and wanted to jump on some tracks, and so he was kind of like a featured, artist on some of the songs that me and my friend Dan made, and then me and Billy started kind of making our own songs, and then that was a lot of fun, and then Billy and Yvette moved to California, Huntington Beach, for a couple years, and then we still kind of stayed in touch. And then when he came back, it was 2012, and he asked me if I'd be interested in joining the band, and I thought, like, oh, dude, you're crazy, like, I'm not that good. And he's like, no, all the songs are easy, like, I wrote them when I was drunk, and I play them when I'm drunk, and I'm like, well, I'll try. And so I already, had a cheap bass guitar, and so I would just go to their apartment and jam with them, and he'd teach me a couple songs at a time. And then once we had like a set, we started playing at Tim Finnegan's open mic, and that kind of got me used to like playing in front of people, and we had a great time doing it. And then we recorded an album in the garage, which turned out to be Mishaps and Relapse, and it turned out pretty good. And so Billy suggested that I just start bringing in bands and bringing in artists and recording there. I've said many times, like, I was nervous at first because I wasn't sure, like, if bands would want to come to, a garage and record, but they did, and it was cool. And then from there, I started getting a lot of young hip hop artists that wanted to record and make songs, and so then they would go back to school or go back to their friends, and then their friends would want to come and make songs, and so it just started snowballing from there. And then as Contradiction started playing out more. Started networking and making friends, and then that's how I met Todd. Todd Libby from Torn at the Seam. Me and Billy played like a, acoustic open mic type situation that Todd was doing, and he really liked us, and so he started wanting to book us more and do shows together, and then I eventually recorded a couple EPs for Torn at the Seam, and we got along great, and then one day Todd asked me if I'd be interested in joining him, and they already had like a great bass player, and so it was huge shoes to fill, and I'm like, well, I'm not that good, but I'll try. And he's like, oh, you're fine, man. And so just started like practicing with them, and so far they haven't kicked me out yet, and so that's been nice.
Good.
And then I've kind of moved my studio a few times, but all along I've been like, oh man, it'd be nice to put out content, and so I'd do like little interviews here and there, and then I produced the Geo and Meatbag show for a couple months, and that was really fun when we were doing that.
Which seems to be making a comeback right now.
It is making
It's
a
really cool to
comeback.
see that happen. I really love seeing the Meatbag and Show come back, especially right now during the pandemic. That's such a breath of fresh air.
No, absolutely. Like we kind of figured out like, okay, we can do this virtually. We can, just everybody's got some sort of a webcam situation, and so we've been able to do it remotely, and it's fun. It's just cool just to kind of like, get back together and tell stories, and so it's great.
So Cosmic Soup was originally just a thought, kind of. Was it something on the back burner more than the actual band itself?
The recording studio?
Yeah.
Well, Cosmic Soup recording goes back 10 years or more. When I went to school for recording, this was way back in 2006. I had to do an internship, and so I wanted to go to Seattle, Washington, and work in that scene. And I was a fan of like all those bands, and I just love the whole culture. But unfortunately, none of those studios took on interns, or they just never, got back or replied back to the school. And so I was kind of running out of time. A couple months had went by, and I didn't fulfill any internship hours. And so I was starting to get a little desperate. And so I reached out to a friend of mine who dropped out of school, but we still remained in contact. And he was working at this bar in Tempe called the Real Bar, which was owned by this girl named Tanya, who became my wife.
Oh, wow.
And so I just, reached out to him. He's like, yeah, I'll introduce you to this guy, Ricardo. He's got like a little home studio, and I'm sure he'll sign your papers and you'll get internship hours. So I'm like, oh, great. That'd be amazing. So I'd just start going whenever they had a show, and I'd kind of help out and wrap cables and help set up, and then eventually like they started being able to throw me some money, and then I started doing shows by myself, and then Ricardo got so busy at his studio that I just took on full time at the bar, and then unfortunately it closed down in 2008, but I kind of just hopped around to different bars and venues around town, and then Tanya and I would kind of throw our own shows here and there, and so that's how I got to meet Contradiction. But Ricardo and I, we still work together. And at the time when I first met him, he had a home studio, and the name of it was in Spanish, because he did a lot of Spanish hard rock, Spanish bands. And so one day I was talking to him, and I just said, "Hey man, like, don't take this the wrong way. I love the studio. I love the name, but have you ever thought about changing it to something more appealing? Because as I would kind of network and tell bands, it was hard to, like, hey, the name of the band or the name of the studio is, in Spanish or whatever." And so Ricardo just said, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And him and we both kind of had this weird infatuation with space and the whole imagery of it. And so he had this book about space, and it called our galaxy a cosmic soup. And so I was talking to him one day, and he just said, "Hey, I've got a name for the studio." And I said, "Oh, what is it?" He said, "Cosmic Soup Recording." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. What does it mean?" He's like, "I don't know, but the more you say it, the cooler it sounds." And so I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So this was like back in like the MySpace days. So I was kind of running the MySpace page, and so then we actually went and got an LLC and made it official. And so he asked me, like, should we keep the name? I said, yeah, I love the name. And so we got, Cosmic Soup Recording LLC, and we got a separate facility that was near Cave Creek and Greenway. And we actually had this room that we converted into a venue, and so we actually had like shows there. We had like underage hardcore bands and things like that. Like I think Shane Pogue, like one of his first bands, like played there, and so it was interesting. And then Ricardo and I, neither one of us knew how to run a business or what the hell we were doing. And so we'd get like small business loans, and we'd squander the money, and we just didn't really have a steady income. I mean, we'd make money off of shows and stuff, but so we'd get behind on rent, and the property management people hated us because we were always late, and we ended up like taking over the whole place. And so we got kicked out. And unfortunately, they took a lot of our stuff as collateral.
Really?
And
like
we had
microphones and
yeah, everything.
Jesus Christ!
And so there was bands that rented rooms from us to rehearse in, and they took their stuff as well. And so it was a struggle just for them to get their stuff back. Thankfully, most of them got their stuff back.
Most of them?
Yeah. I mean, but Ricardo ended up losing a lot of stuff. They took his like computer, which had like every session he'd ever done.
Oh no!
And so we both were like pretty devastated, and we took it pretty hard. And he didn't really do anything as far as music for a while. Right now, he's working at Underdog, so he's back into it. But
didn't somebody just record with Underdog, or maybe I'm mistaken?
Skull Drug. Oh, Let Me Downs.
Let Me Downs. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. That's right. Yeah, Skull Drug did too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Skull Drug does a lot of. I mean, pretty much all their stuff with Kristen. Let Me Downs. I mean, obviously Paul and Kristen are friends, so he just has been posted and finishing up vocals there. So yeah. But as far as me, like, I wasn't sure like what I wanted to do, like if I just wanted to go back into live sound or not do anything. I mean, I was working retail at the time, so I had a little bit of money coming in, but pretty much, I mean, it was Billy Russell and Contradiction that was like, no, let's just keep doing this, and kind of got me back into it. And in a sense, I kind of started from scratch, but I already had like a nice following on Facebook, and some people knew me, and I had some projects under my belt, but pretty much, yeah, it was just like, rising from the ashes or whatever. And Billy even, asked me one day, he's like, well, now that it's just you, don't you think like you should change the name? And I said, fuck no, dude. Like, I work so hard, like, getting all the likes on Facebook and getting the logo and the website and all this shit. I'm like, I'm not starting all over.
It definitely sounds like one of those things where when you start a band and someone's like, I don't really like your band name that much. Like, it's got to change.
Fuck that.
And you hear so many stories about that too from big bands,
Oh, sure.
And it's wild. I remember when we came up with Rundown. It was actually Rundown Roommates. It was just the first thing that ever came out of my mouth, I guess.
Really?
Yeah, like that's for sure. It's super. Are you all right over there, Austin? Word. Anyways, yeah, Rundown Roommates, me and Elliot Diggs were just recording in the house that we lived in. I lived in the garage for $200 a month. I had just lost everything. I lost everything. I lost my car, my girlfriend, my place, all within like a matter of 5 hours on my way home from work. It's a pretty fucked up situation.
Goddamn.
Yeah, I got pulled over for like no registration and stuff. I had no idea my license was suspended at all. And I lost everything that day. It was wild. And I moved into the Rundown Roommate's house, and me and Elliot became friends. I didn't even know he lived there. I went into a bedroom and was just putting shit in there and almost put a TV on him. Like one of the big 90s TV. Yeah. But I totally know, like, it's crazy. You're so married to the idea, and I think the more that you put into it, it really shows what it can be, rather it be a band, a name of a company. But the more that you just believe in the brand itself,
oh yeah,
from the beginning, the better it just gets, especially when you put the time dedication, just like you've done at Cosmic Soup. So it started in your mom's garage.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, like once I decided like, okay, I'm going to go about this, solo, and Ricardo and I, we never had like a sit down discussion, but I just started doing stuff, and I thought, hey, if we team up again, great. If not, oh well. But he never like reached out and said, hey, don't fucking use the name anymore or anything like that. So it was all cool. And then, I got the LLC in my name, and just started trying to reorganize everything. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to fucking pay taxes and, and just try to like, okay. And, educate myself and watch videos about like, okay, how to do this the right way. And luckily I had, someone like Billy who would, come and help me on sessions, and he was great at just marketing and promoting and bugging people. And so I was able to record bands like Sister Lip and Los fucking Ramirez and and Torn at the Seam even was because of Billy. And so it was cool. And then I recorded this band called Discordant. They're from Payson, and they're a hard rock band, and they were great. And then they had this, skinny little kid named Steven playing the guitar, and so I got to meet him. And then
Meatbag?
And then from that recording, Jay Fly and his dad liked how that turned out, and it was very affordable. Like I was charging next to nothing at that point. And so then they reached out to me, and they're like, hey, we really like the way that turned out. We've got a punk band that, I'd like to, work on. And so I'm like, okay, cool. And so we kind of went back and forth for a while, and then we finally like set up a time, and then Steven shows up, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I didn't know you were in this band. And he's like, yeah, I play drums. And I'm like, you play the drums?
That dude is a man of many talents.
And so I remember like that night, because this was like after Yvette left Contradiction. And so we had this guy named Squiz playing drums with us, and he was great, but just never clicked. And so the night Steven came and put down all the drums for the Squared record, or Alex Squared at that time, he did it in like an hour and a half. All the songs, like,
Dude, such a talented guy.
Just him and the scratch guitar, and I'm like, fuck, dude. I called Billy like that night, and I'm like, dude, Steven just fucking came, and he plays the drums. We need this. We need to figure out a way that steal him, and so we stole him.
That's awesome. So this is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it is crazy to hear just like how everything started, because what you have now is very impressive. CJ, can you see if you can look up the Rundown Roommates music video?
Yes.
I think that's just like a really dope display of what the studio looks like. We're gonna have CJ pull that up, and make sure you mute the sound, CJ, when you pull it up.
I was hoping you brought that up because I've had numerous people tell me that is a great business card for the studio, because not only does it showcase the studio itself, but you know, the awesome recording, the great song that you guys put together. And like, if anybody wants to know about Cosmic Soup Recording, that's it.
Yeah,
yep.
This video right here. And shout out to Austin Estes of the Estes Creative.
I was just going to say.
Who is also behind our cameras today. Thank you, Austin, for making this happen.
So amazing.
Yeah, I love the layout of this studio. This building that you came up on, like, couldn't be more perfect. It used to be an AM radio station.
Yeah, talk radio.
Keep playing that out, CJ. Let that play for a little bit.
It was the Kim Commando show. She still does it, but they changed locations, and so they kind of they pretty much built the studio and put the carpet on the walls and the windows, and then they left in 2013-ish, and so for years it was empty, you know.
Yeah.
There was like some different companies that rented the building, but they never really did anything with my part. And there was a guy who had a party bus company who was using the upstairs and the warehouse for his parts, and he had 5 buses in the parking lot. And so when Meatbag and I first looked at this place, you know, there's buses in the parking lot.
Really?
And then 2 weeks after, like, me and Meatbag looked at this place, COVID hit. And so
Jesus.
This guy lost all of his business, sent his buses back to California where he was from. And so right now I'm the only tenant. So you can see at the end, like, we go out to the lobby, and it's a huge place. But yeah, I definitely got lucky.
I love this place. It's definitely become, that's good, CJ. It's definitely become like a home away from home, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Like it is. It's awesome to show up and see other people there too. With no shows going on, and you're really good about scheduling out sessions, so there's not too many people in there. Like, you're really good about what you do right now during the pandemic, and there is nothing more satisfying than, you know, coming in and seeing one of your friends that you used to play shows with, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, seeing somebody else there that you know, that I haven't seen anybody on stage in forever, it seems like. And what has it been like from going to? What has the pandemic been like? Being an audio engineer, an owner of a recording studio, being in a band, like, how do you make all this work still?
Yeah, it was interesting because, you know, I'm sure myself, like a lot of people, I thought, oh, this is just going to go away like in a month or two, you know, because No Composure, we were planning on putting out our record around, you know, middle of March, you know, and beginning of April. And we had planned a 3 or 4 city mini tour in Arizona. We were going to go on the road with Miles to Nowhere.
Nice.
Shout
out Miles to Nowhere.
Yeah, and Kristen, yeah. We were planning on doing like a show in Phoenix, then we were going to go do a show in Prescott and a show in Payson, and then we were thinking about probably doing Flagstaff as well. And so we were trying to kind of hash out the details and decide like, okay, do we want to like stay in each city and then go, or do we want to come back after each show and everything? And then there started to be little rumblings and little rumors about bars closing down, tours, big shows canceling. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? And so I messaged like Meatbag, like, do we have to cancel our thing? And then he, we kind of like had a laugh about it. And then like a few days later, like, dude, we're going to have to cancel this thing.
Dude.
And so we canceled it, and we just thought like, oh, a couple months it'd be kind of back to normal. And then, I was still like contemplating like whether I was going to get this place or not, because I wasn't sure. And then when the pandemic hit, I'm like, fuck, dude, like, is this a smart thing? Because I went from like, just recording out of my home with no overhead really to like, okay, now I have bills.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I did it, and then the first couple months were actually really great because people were getting their stimulus or their tax money or unemployment or whatever, and so I was making like good money, and I'm like, oh fuck yeah, this is gonna work. And then of course summer kind of dips, and then now it's kind of on the uprise again, but it's been interesting. But I think bands, they find ways of still doing things, and so I've done a lot of like live stream.
Yeah,
things.
you've been doing the Two Pimps No Host podcast with Guyver.
Well, it's right now it's just the Cosmic Soup Recording podcast.
Oh, okay.
Because once the lockdown was in place, I just started like going live on Instagram and Facebook just as a way to like just talk to myself and just vent. And
was that really getting to you? Like, I don't know, being, lockdown happens, and I think it's different for everybody. I mean, the great thing is you have a family at home, and you're not by
right.
yourself. Then there are people that live in an apartment by
themselves.
What was that like? Like, did you feel like an emptiness when this started happening and just were looking for a way out, or?
I think, yeah, definitely. But I didn't really realize it, until I'm like, oh man, I've got so much stuff I want to talk about. Like, I just want to just talk to somebody, And so I'm like, maybe I'll just, do these little videos. And then, I remember like one time I just went live, and then you called me, and we just talked about football or something for like 15 minutes. And it was just cool, because a lot of times, it's like someone comes in, I do a lot of like hip hop, R&B. And so they'll come in, we'll chat for like a few minutes. They'll record their songs or whatever. And then, okay, bye. But we don't really like talk,
right.
And so I just kind of miss that like camaraderie of like just going to shows and just talking out in the parking lot,
It's even great when you run into someone else that's in a band that's not even playing that night.
Yeah.
That is, there's something about that feeling, because, you're in a band, and, no matter what time you go on, whether you be an opener or, direct support or even the closing act, there's a lot to think about. You're trying to get your mind right.
Oh, sure.
You're trying to remember your lyrics. You're trying to see if you can possibly borrow a hi-hat stand or a quarter inch.
Yep.
So I loved not playing a show and seeing bands at a show that they weren't playing.
Yeah.
That was seriously like, that is the breath of fresh air that I really miss personally.
Oh yeah.
Like, I really just miss running into Todd at a show, or running into Meatbag, or Megan from Critical Miss, and there's so many really dope people that the scene has, the music scene just in general, not even just the punk rock, but you see a lot of hip hop and R&B artists come through that I'm sure are really awesome people, and it is, I miss the camaraderie more than anything, for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's nothing better than like just playing a show and then getting off stage,
Packing
and
up your
just
gear real quick.
that just adrenaline, like hopefully it went good and you didn't fuck up too much, so you just have that excitement, and then just seeing people, and there's just that relief, like, all right, I'm done, I did my job, and now I can
I miss
hang
the
out.
weirdest things too about shows. Like
Yeah.
I miss the weird stuff, like playing yucca, saying good night, and it's not like we run off a stage and
No,
disappear
'cause then
behind
you
the
gotta
curtain.
take your
Then
shit.
we're like, lights come on, you're unplugging your shit,
Yeah.
whatever. But then people are like, good job, what I mean? They're
Yeah,
just sticking
yeah.
around. Like it's very intimate, and I miss that intimacy when it comes to performing. It's been really weird doing live streams or
Oh, yeah.
recorded content, or
Yep.
it is odd not engaging with your audience. And I wonder, as we slowly see things come back, or whenever we do, what our shows, do you have a vision of what shows might be like when they first start coming back? Like, what do you think? Obviously, we're not going to be in the mosh pit spitting on each other and whatever.
Yeah. I mean, this is a question that we've talked about many times, and it's weird, because I I see a lot of posts on Facebook talking about like how much people miss it, but then, there's been places like Yaku who have tried to have, like little parking lot shows and stuff, but, not a lot of people have go, and you don't know, like, is it because people are still cautious, or it's because, it's just artists or bands that they've seen a bunch of times, so there's really no draw. But I hope that when it does come back, like, people don't take it for granted and be like, you know what, fuck, dude. Because how many times have you had a show and you invite your friends, and then they've got this excuse or another, and
Right.
and so you're always let down, you're always disappointed, and you're like, damn, dude, not to take away from the 50 people that are already at the show, but still, you're like, God damn, like, you invite all these people and then only a few of them show up, And so I hope that when shows do come back, people are like, you know what, like, I'm not gonna miss out.
Do you remember the last show you either attended or played before the pandemic hit? Whichever came first, I guess. But
it was probably a No Composure. I think we played the Grid.
you guys were pretty active before the pandemic hit.
Yeah, like we were really trying to because we had like a
If you don't mind for the
EP or
people,
whatever.
if
that
you
we
don't
were
mind for the
trying to
people
promote.
listening, can you explain a little bit about who's in No Composure and your role in it? And
Yes. So No Composure is the remaining members of Contradiction. I was in a band with Billy Russell. I joined the band in 2012, and then we stole Meatbag, and he joined the band like 2015 or so, and he was playing drums, and then he took some time off, and then the story of Contradiction has a lot of ups and downs. Billy, he had his vices, and he also was in jail for like 3 months,
Free Billy.
off and on.
Free Billy.
And that's where the Free Billy came from. And
I think I remember Gio making a joke. He's like, "We got these Free Billy shirts, but he probably needs to be in there."
yeah. Well, because Billy was getting into trouble. He was living in Mesa in Phoenix, and he was getting into some trouble that he shouldn't be getting into. And so his girlfriend and him, they just had this beautiful baby, and Billy was kind of getting into some bad habits. And so they're like, okay, we're going to move to Prescott to get Billy away from those bad things. And so they moved to Prescott, and he was doing good. And then like a couple months go by, and then he went to the drunken last and had too many shots, and then drove home and got pulled over and then tried to like hide from the cops. And so he got arrested, and then his mom like, like kept him in jail for like a month.
Jesus
Like,
Christ,
I
yeah.
hope you learn your lesson. And he'd write Meatbag and I like letters from jail. So then he got out, and we kind of, started kicking things up again. And then, but we knew like, okay, he's going to, have to go back or have to do community service or whatever. So he took some plea deal. And so he had to serve like 60 more days and do like community service and go to classes and everything. And so we're like, okay, well, in the long run, this will be the best thing for him. And so we had shows booked because we didn't know like when he was going to have to go back. And so we had some shows booked, and we were doing the like AZ punk rock bowling. And so,
yes.
and so that was a big deal. And so we didn't want to drop off.
Was that when the Bomb Pops headlined it? No, maybe not.
That was Jacob and Law.
Oh, okay. Because I remember playing one of those with you guys. Or maybe it was just the Bomb Pop show, but I do remember.
Yeah. I mean, goddamn, I have to like go back and look at the flyer because they had it was the Timeout Lounge, and then Yucca, and then like the record store was even doing like acoustic stuff.
This is before I actually.
Oh yeah,
this was years ago. Okay.
This is pre you, but we asked Gio if he'd fill in on guitar and vocals.
Oh really?
And so he's like, "Fuck yeah, dude!" So we had like a couple practices, and
Yeah.
so we did like 2 shows as Gio as the front man.
That is pretty sick. I never knew that.
And so going back to your shirt, so Billy actually made that design.
Oh really?
and he posted that on his own Facebook or Instagram.
Free
or
me?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like it's like because Paige didn't want anybody to know like, oh, Billy's fucking up again and blah blah blah.
Of course.
But he did that. Like this was from a picture that that we did years ago with Tag Photography. It was Yvette and Billy and myself, and we went under this bridge, and so there's all this cool graffiti, and there's like this like lineup with with the numbers, like a height chart or whatever. So it looks like he's fucking. That's like a mugshot,
Right.
And so he did the Free Billy, and like we posted that on our own thing, and Paige didn't like that. But I was talking to Meatbag, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna get some fucking shirts made, and we'll wear the shirts at our shows.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh fuck yeah, dude. So there's videos and there's stuff, there's pictures, and so it's me and Gio and Meatbag all wearing that shirt, and so we had some like for sale, and some people bought them, and then once like Billy was out, like it wasn't a gimmick anymore, so we started like giving away these shirts and stuff, and now they're like the most valuable thing,
Dude, yeah. Oh my god, I miss that guy, man.
I do too.
When I first really started to dip into the punk rock scene and stuff, all of you guys were very welcoming. That was that was a really big deal for me, because we were still getting our feet wet, even just trying to be a part of this. And you guys really came with open arms.
Oh, sure.
I remember one of the first times hanging out with you guys. I think we were at a Squared show, but after the show, I think it was Billy and Gio, but they're like, you should come back to the Soup. And I think you guys were working on Mexican fishing tricks.
Probably.
I think so. Like,
oh no, this was Lead Balloon.
It was Lead Balloon. That's right.
Yeah.
It was in the garage, and it was such a breath of fresh air. I don't know. It was exactly what I needed, because I was really scoping things out. Like, where am I going to fit in? How am I going to get my guys to fit in? Are we going to be accepted into this? And it was really cool, because I really think about that day a lot, since then, I've always known you.
Right.
And I've always known Meatbag. And now I play in a band with Geo. And, before Billy passed away, I remember you guys playing an original Contradiction set at my house.
Yes.
And I showed you some of the first demo tracks I was making in my
Yep.
room
Yep.
of the Rundown Roommates Just Moved In album, how I wanted all those features, and
Yeah.
showing Billy the concept before he passed
know.
away and stuff. That was cool, man. That
Yeah,
stuff,
I'll never forget that.
I'll never forget that. And I think when it comes to when you were saying like value time and value conversation,
Yep.
I never ever wanted to waste time on a project again because Billy was supposed to be on the
Yeah.
Name Drop Soup song with and his idea was to get Todd. Remember that?
Yep.
Like that was his idea. Like it'd be sick if you got Todd from Torn at the Seam on this.
Yep.
And I'm like, that'd be super dope. And I just kept trying to make things work, figure out what I was gonna do, and the next week, I think, or maybe a week or so after, is when tragedy struck, and
Right.
that really hit me hard. That really hit me hard of how valuable time is.
Yeah.
Time like this, even just sitting with you, and especially during the pandemic, take it however you want, but people die over this, and it's a real thing. Time is very
yeah.
important to us, and I think with all the free time that we have right now on our hands, even though we can't go out and see each other, we are trying to figure out how to utilize this time and
Oh, sure.
make it important to us. It's weird. It is a weird, weird time to be a musician, a performer. It's a weird time to engage with people you love or can't engage with people you love. What has it been like trying to balance this in a family right now?
Well, even pre-pandemic, it's difficult because, family, it's hard to juggle your time, and so, you devote enough time to family, and you devote enough time to your band, and then you devote time to recording, and you devote time to business and growing that business. And then I always felt like if one thing is doing good, then I'm neglecting the other things.
Yeah.
And, back in the, garage days, like, me and Billy, we'd stay up like till, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, working on something or just listening to music or just talking. And my girlfriend would be so pissed off. She'd just be waiting for me to come inside, and I'd be like, oh, one almost done, or one more hour, and then it would turn into 3 or 4, and so, I mean, looking back, I'm definitely glad that we had that time, but it's tough because when you start focusing your time on one thing, then I feel guilty because then I'm not maybe focusing enough time on something else. But
CJ, can you bring up that quote? This is off the Instagram right here of Cosmic Soup.
oh yeah,
Without hustle, talent will only carry you so far. That's so true.
yeah, because it's been kind of like an ongoing thing. A lot of the hip hop artists, they're really firm believers on hustling. And then one of the artists that I record, he's got a brand called Hustle Memory.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
actually pretty dope.
It
I like
is
that.
dope,
Shout out
and-
Hustle Memory.
And his logo is a brain, but then the brain, it says Hustle Memory.
CJ, can you see if you can find that for us, buddy? I want to check that out.
Yeah, and
It's called Hustle Memory. We'll see if he can find it. Go on.
yeah, and so every once in a while, I think I kind of have to, remind myself and give myself like a self affirmation, but then also like motivate other people. Like, hey, just because we're, locked down or just because it's a weird time right now doesn't mean like you need to be still,
Do you think a lot of people think that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know, like, I'm gonna put my own band, Torn at the Seam, throw them under the bus. Like, we we haven't really done anything. You
Well,
know?
when it goes to Torn at the Seam, how many members are you?
Yeah.
Because that's a big band you have
Yeah.
there.
Yes. You know, the minimum, it's, you know, you might see us as like, you know, Todd and I and Tough, you know, playing sax. You know, Shoei is in 50 bands. So if we can get him, great. You know, if not, we've got Arturo, who is very busy himself. He's in a Selena tribute band, and
A Selena tribute band?
Yeah.
That sounds
And they're
gangster as fuck.
and they're like one of the best. So they do
Really?
like some big gigs. Yeah.
They have like a lead, like someone singing, and
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
She even looks like Selena.
no
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah. And so he's busy, but we can have him jump in, and then if our schedules collide, we can get Danny from Captain Squeegee, and he's in 50 projects.
That dude's an animal on the trumpet, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, he's been on a lot of projects. You know, he's most known for Captain Squeegee, Bad Fish, which is Sublime tribute, Fayuca, but then he also does stuff with Mouse Powell and a bunch of other local projects. He's been on Mad Dog Tannen.
Yeah,
track.
he's also he used to do some radio for 93.9.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of stuff with Johnny of Brian Cooper's Ghost too. They were
Sure.
Yeah, they did a lot of really cool conversations. He has some gnarly conspiracy theories and
Oh, hell
man,
yeah.
I could seriously listen to him talk about that shit for hours.
Yeah.
I used to just tune in just to hear him talk all that crazy shit or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, but he's a very insightful guy. He's got a mind of his own, a very unique mind for
Yeah.
sure. I've never met anyone like him or seen anyone like him.
Oh, and he's just so talented. And I also want to mention that you can hear him on Microscopic.
That's right.
Squared, featuring Torn at the Seam.
Yes, you can. That was a fun song. That was fun. I learned that song that day and just played some chords and
I know.
a couple little solos and stuff.
Dude, that song, like, it's funny because Gio would bring it up like, oh yeah, I got this ska song, blah, blah. And the Meatbag is like, what are you talking about? I've never heard this song before.
Dude, I remember that. Like, I was thrown off, but I'm like, what? I didn't know.
And so he's like, no, I do. And so, like, he recorded this, like, just scratch guitar, and, like, we sent it to Todd, and then Todd learned it, and then we were supposed to, like, you know, get together and kind of hash it out, but, of course, you know, everybody's late. They're on Rockstar time. And so we, like, had, like, an hour before I had another session, and it's like, okay, we've got to learn this song. And then
We
got
scrapped the metronome, if I'm not mistaken. We just had Todd and Meatbag playing it like
Yeah.
together on one go,
yeah,
and built around that.
yeah, and then Gio doing his amazing scratch vocals and mouth trumpet.
Yes, he did the mouth trumpet.
Yeah,
And then it was matched perfectly.
I know. And then he just did that. It's like a reference. Like, okay, this is where the horns are. Okay, and then I'm gonna come in and sing again. And so we sent Danny, you know, the scratch tracks basically, and I sent him the scratch vocal with the mouth trumpet, so he'd kind of know, like, okay, this is where you go. And he did the exact same thing that Gio was doing. And so we got it back, and we're like, holy shit, we didn't really expect him to fucking actually do
Exactly what he did.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I remember
was
that
amazing.
very vividly about like getting that track back, and I was like, holy fucking
Yeah.
shit. That was awesome. You smoking some weed over there, Austin? Let me get some of that. Bring that over here, buddy.
But so Torn at the Seam, it could be 4 guys, it could be 7, you know, depending on.
And you had can you go through your roster of like when it's 7? Like,
Well, okay, so we've only done this a couple times. Mainly, like if it's a big show at the Marquee, then it'll be
thanks, buddy.
then it'll be drums, which is usually showy. And then Arturo will do percussion, and then halfway or through different songs they'll switch. So Arturo will play the drum kit and Shoei will do percussion. And then they'll kind of do like a silly fill or something, then they'll switch back. And so that's kind of entertaining. And then it's just me on the bass. And then Todd plays guitar and sings. And then Tuffy plays saxophone. And then Danny plays trumpet. And so...
How do you practice? How does that practice happen? Is that like, I can barely schedule a 3-man practice.
Exactly. Exactly. And we practice in Mesa at Band Oasis because they're all East Siders.
Shout out Band Oasis.
And so I'd be lying if I said there isn't a couple times that I'd fucking drive all the way over there and then be like, oh, fuck, we text you, but blah, 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 can't make it or something.
Is there any act that you're seeing right now that's doing well in the pandemic that seems to be, I don't know, rising above the ashes a little bit? Or
Well, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I think everybody's trying to do their little parts and put out videos or put out, a song here and there. I wouldn't say like anybody's like standing out. I think the ones that are like continuing to work and write and demo and stuff, I think they'll be more successful that when this all does come back. I think the ones that are just kind of like waiting this out, I think when when things start move, I think it's going to move really fast. And then there's going to be bands that are like, oh shit, we don't have any content, you know? But, I think everybody's, they're trying to do their thing. I mean, now's a good time to transition or get new members or whatever, or write or whatever,
do you think we're going to see a lot of musical acts or bands maybe disappear or fail during this time?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think that is? Like just discouragement or not getting the same high as playing out? What do you think the reason for giving up would be during the pandemic? I mean, aside from the pandemic and social distancing, you can get your band to all get negative COVID tests and
sure,
be creative.
Oh, sure. I mean, you can still, demo stuff out and send it to each other through email, and it's not like it's impossible. I mean, Square did a whole live stream where they're in different rooms, so it's not even like, oh, we have to socially distance ourselves or anything like that. Like, you can still find ways of making it work. I think people get stuck in ruts and people, lose motivation.
Yeah.
And, like, unless there's like a show, it's like, well, I mean, why practice if we're not practicing for a show? Or like, oh, I've got writer's block, so I'm not writing anything.
I felt the same way recently, especially. It is hard to want to practice right now, especially when you've maybe been playing these songs for so long. You just kind of wonder, are we going to write something new? Are we going to test out new ideas? It's very easy to get discouraged right now. Does that make
Definitely.
Like, being discouraged seems to be a very, very big thing right now. How have you managed to stay creative, and then how have you managed, if you have felt discouraged, to come out of it?
Well, I'll say for myself, like, there's times where it's like, I don't want to practice or I don't want to do this. But then as soon as you're like all in the same room or whatever, you're like, oh yeah, this feels right,
Yes.
And it's like squared, you know, it's like, oh fuck, dude, I gotta go to squared practice and or whatever. But then once you're all in the same room and you're just playing that music, and it's like, oh yeah, this is why we do it,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, and No Composure, like we finally like got together, you know, before my parking lot party, and it was like, oh yeah, this is nice, you know, like, oh yeah, these songs are good, you know, like, why don't we just get together once in a while and just play the fucking songs?
Your parking lot party was awesome. I want to talk about that for a minute. That was
Yeah.
a really cool, because it was pretty exclusive for the most part, you know. And you had a really dope, really spread out parking lot. Some taco trucks come. Everything was very distanced out and safe. And it was nice. It was really nice to do that again. We just played some acoustic sets. We had the Squared was there. And then you had Mad Dog Tannen. And then what was you had an open micer as well, a solo artist.
Right.
And then what was the last band that you had on?
Crack Rabbit.
That's right, Crack Rabbit, where Riley from Crack Rabbit is starting to
Yep.
play with Squared, which has been fantastic.
Yeah.
I just got my first practice with her not that long ago.
Yeah.
Awesome drummer, amazing talent. How did you come across them?
Great question. So I recorded this this project kind of goes back a couple years. It started off as like an acoustic project and then turned into like a full band project. And so that's the first time I met Riley, was drumming for this other project. And then somehow we got in contact, and then she said, hey, I've got this other project called Crack Rabbit, and we'd like to just record like a couple songs. And so I'm like, okay, cool. And then, you know, I didn't look them up. I didn't do any research. I didn't know how they sounded or anything. And so they came in, and at first, like, they're like parking like on fucking Meatbag's lawn and shit. And I'm like, who the fuck are these assholes, you know? And then they finally like start playing, and I'm like, holy shit, they're really good. It's female fronted. And so as soon as she started singing, I'm like, oh my God, she
She was fantastic at the
Yeah.
parking lot show that you had.
And so I'm like, wow, like she's got like a killer tone and punk rocky voice, but then also pretty clean. And so I remember, like, as soon as we kind of started getting some like rough mixes, I'm like sending them to Meatbag, like, dude, check this shit out. This is fucking awesome, dude. Like, how is no one know who the fuck this band is and shit? So we recorded 3 songs, and then they just kind of put out one at a time. And then when Meatbag and I and Billy were practicing and writing for the new record, Meatbag had this song called I Feel Like Shit, and it's my favorite song on the record. And it's kind of got like this record that he wrote. It's very different because some of the songs are like just straightforward, you know, rock songs, and some there's big gaps where there's like no vocals. And so we had this song that was just really just kind of simple groove, and it kind of had this build up where there's no vocals, just this build up, and then it kind of reaches the refrain, you know, I feel like shit and you don't care. And so we were talking about, like, man, it'd be great to have a girl singing this part, you know? And so I'm like, oh, I know someone. And so I reached out to Rose, and I just said, hey, this is just a rough demo that we're doing. Like, we'd love to have you on this song. And I'm like, if you want to write your own lyrics, or you can, you know, or sing whatever the fuck Steve's singing, whatever. And so, you know, months went by, Didn't really hear anything. And so I'm like, shit, I don't know if she's not interested or whatever. Reached out to her and I'm like, hey, we're kind of wanting to wrap up this record. If you could do it, great. If not, no worries, you know. She's like, no, I'll do it. You know, when do you need it? And I'm like, we kind of need it by like
Yesterday.
next week. And she's like, oh shit, you know. And so she's like, okay, I'll do it. And so she came in. All this shit that she's doing is like fucking one take. And then I'm like, well, sing the chorus too. Sing this part too. Sing, you know, backups to Meatbag. And so she's like, okay. Did it all. Was fucking like out the door in like 20 minutes. Played it for the guys and they're like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. And so then when we started brainstorming for my parking lot party, you know, it all just started was like, well, fuck, dude. Hadn't really had like a grand opening thing. Like, I feel like we're at the point where like the weather's kind of cooling off. Like, we could do something outdoors and still be socially distant. And this will kind of give us a reason to play some music. And it was my birthday. So I'm like, let's just do all these things and combine it into like one thing. And so then my mind is like, okay, I reached out to Gio. He's like, yep, we'll do it. Reached out to Meatbag. He's like, yeah, of course I'll do it. And so then I was talking to Brian from Mad Dog Tan, and he's like, you going to ask me or what? And I'm like, you want to do it? He's like, fuck yeah. So then like Mad Dog Tannen was on board. And then I'm like, oh, you know, it'd be cool since we really hadn't had like a record release, you know, and we have no signs in the future of when that would be. I'm like, you want me to ask Rose if she'll come and fucking sing? And so Meatbag's like, yeah. And so then I reached out to her and then I'm like, hey, I'm having a party. You know, if you could come, that would be great, you know, and if you want to sing this song with us, that'd be great too. And she's like, yeah, I'll be there. Yes, I'll sing. And can my band play? And I'm like, fuck yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
And
Hell
so
yeah.
then like, yeah, they came and they were the fucking, you know, blew the figurative roof off the place. They're just like, everybody else was
Put
like
holes in the canopy.
fucking up and, you know, I hadn't played in months and
I was definitely rusty.
and shit. And then I'm like, oh, dude, you know, of course, like we'll have Torn at the Seam play. And I swear to God, like I told Todd fucking months ago. And then he like shows up like, dude, I don't remember how to fucking play these songs and stuff. And I'm like, they're your fucking songs, dude.
Dude, my bass player, Elliot Diggs, shout out Elliot Diggs, but he does the same shit, you know what I mean? He's a really talented guy, but I've seen that guy practice like on the bus on the way there. Like,
Yeah.
you know, taking trains and whatever and just learning real quick. But man, like, I definitely felt the gears start to come a little loose and the rust dusting off when I played that. I realized how rusty I really was. No matter how many times that we had played in, you know, Gio's living room and
sure.
practice, as soon as I was up there, I was like, I have not done this in a while. I don't even
Right.
know how this works. I'm just going to make fun of Gio.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you got the lights and you got the people, and you're like, oh, this is the real fucking deal, dude.
Yeah. And it was strange, too, because, you know, you had people everywhere versus in, like, one spot like it used to be.
Yeah.
You know, everyone was right in the middle, and you saw people spread out. So I feel like it was, like, almost like, how are you guys doing tonight? You know what I mean? Kind of trying to address so many parts of the parking lot or even a venue right now, it seems like. What do you think about shows? I've seen a few possibly happening now at places like 44 Bar and Socially Distanced Show. What is your opinion on them? Like, do you think it's worth it right now? Or is it, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know how satisfying it really is. I feel like I'm not seeing bands the same way I used to, which is right up in their grill, like right in front of the stage. But what do you think about shows that are going on at this time or trying to?
Yeah, it's weird because it's like, you know, every time like a venue like tries to do something, I feel like there's people like trying to fuck it up or places are getting closed again, or slapped with warnings and things like that. And so I think venues themselves are almost like, fuck, we're not going to try to do anything until the city says so.
Yeah.
I heard a rumor, I don't even know if it was true, that like Yucca got in trouble for even the parking lot shows.
I heard that too. I saw that going around social media.
But don't.
I saw the video of that.
Anything.
I saw the video of that. There was like, first of all, there wasn't a whole lot of people there.
Yeah.
Second of all, it was outside. Third of all, there weren't tables, there wasn't seating, so everyone was spread out on their own. There was no one even within like 8 feet of Geo. I mean, he sucks dick at playing guitar, but you know what I mean?
I was at Geo's show.
Yeah, what was that like? I mean, I saw it from a camera angle.
Yeah, it was cool, because he did it right after the FOL challenge. And
yes.
so like we're hanging out and I'm like, I don't have anything going on. Like I'll fucking come. And I tell people all the time, yeah, I'll come. And I don't. So I'm like, all right, I'll fucking go up there. And so I went up there and like, it was cool. Cause like both bars were like open, they had like every other table open. And so like, as soon as I get there, I see my friend Nick, who's, who was in Jack the Cat, now he's in Ham and a bunch of other stuff. But so I see him, so I say, oh, cool, catch up with him, fucking have a beer, and then Pam was there, talked to her for a little bit.
Shout out to Drinking with Pam.
That's when she told me about your guitar, so I knew then.
Dude, I was so blown away about that. I could not, I felt so stupid. My girlfriend's mom, Pam, bought me the Fender Tim Armstrong Hellcat.
Yep.
And I was so, like, I was up here just getting stoned or whatever. She came over, and she's like, oh, hey, can you get my Jaeger out of the car? And I opened the door, and I was like, who the fuck left their guitar in here? I'm like, where's the Jaeger? And then I'm looking at this guitar. I'm like, this is nice as fuck.
Yeah.
And then, like, I'm just sitting there with a blank stare on my face. Is this for me? And then they were like watching from back, like, it's for you. And I just started freaking out. That was really cool. I needed.
So they didn't wrap it or anything?
No, I went downstairs, opened the door, was looking for Jaeger, like lifting up the guitar. I'm like, I don't see your Jaeger anywhere. I'm like, man, whose is this? This is really nice. There's like a brand new strap in here. The fucking plastic was still on the pick guard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was so awesome. That was something to really bring up the spirits and get the ball rolling again on writing and wanting to play. It's weird. I like to play by myself a little bit here and there, but when life is happening, and I like writing more with my guys.
Oh, sure.
It's easier. It's more fun.
Yeah, you have that immediate response. Like you can bounce ideas. Like you can play something, and right away, you get a reaction. Like, oh, this is good, or no, that's fucking dog shit.
Is there being in multiple bands? Is there a different? Are there different processes of writing between the two? Rather it be torn to the scene or no composure?
For me, I like consider myself more of just like a hired guy, because because I was so spoiled in Contradiction that Billy would have these songs and he'd play them and they were there. They were already there. It's like you need to be like, oh, what if you change this lyric, or what if we went to a bridge here? It was just done. And just recording it was just like just capturing the magic of Billy Russell. And so okay, I'd have ideas. It's more like on the post-production and stuff, but the song itself was like there. Like there's like a couple songs where we actually like sat down and like figured out together. Like Wake Up, he kind of had the idea, the skeleton of it, but we actually like filled in some of the lyrics, and then he's like, oh, what if you go to this and you do like a little bass fucking thing? Oh yeah, that's cool. And so that was neat. With Torn at the Seam, Todd has the kind of skeleton in his brain already, and then he'll play it, and then you've got Shoei, who's just amazing.
That dude,
He'll
is
just be like,
an
okay,
animal.
I'll do a fucking double time here, and then I'll go to the ride here, and blah blah blah. So then you're like, holy fuck, dude. And then Todd just gives me the freedom to be like, play whatever the fuck you want, dude. If you want to play it like straight, quarter notes,
Walks
like
or something
fucking
like that.
punk rock, or if you want to try to do some things, but Todd's always like, do more. Like I'll record like a little bass thing. I'll send it to him. Do more. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to I just want to fit in the pocket, dude. He's like, no, turn it more, And so I'm like, fuck, okay. And then, when Danny comes, he's putting his own horn lines, and then it's just a magical process. And then with No Composure, Steve had all these songs that he had kind of written, when he was in Contradiction, and then for solo, and some could have been squared songs. And so we kind of sifted through some of those. And then when we'd get together, like in the room, we'd kind of jam riffs. And then there's some riffs that were like, oh, that was cool. Let's save that, and let's save that. But then, Meatbag would kind of go and fill in some of the lyrics. No Composure is kind of interesting because for the first EP we did, the Moving Along, we wanted to be very inspired by Billy. So it's kind of a sad record because, Moving Along is about Billy, obviously. Still Remains is about Billy. Born Again was a riff that we just kind of we're fucking around with. And then we're like, oh, that sounds really cool.
Could you bring up that Instagram again, CJ? Can you
And
bring
then-
up the Cosmic Soup?
And then I've got Billy's lyrics that he had written like when he was like 18 years old. So they're all like, about dumb shit and dying and drugs and stuff. But there's a
Stop
couple
right
that I kind of
I wanted to bring up.
highlighted.
Sorry, I wanted to bring up the scroll up a little bit, CJ. Right there, the No Composure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's our second.
That's your second EP.
Yeah, that's the Garbage.
That one was great.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
Yeah. And so so that one, yeah, that's the first one. So, and then Clocking In, which is a more traditional like punk rock, fun, waking up, drunk. That could have been a squared song, but it just never was. And so then Meatbag played it for me, and I'm like, dude, I love it. And so we're like, yeah, let's do that, because let's put that on the record, because otherwise it would just be a bunch of sad songs.
Can we go to the No Composure? You got the No Composure website up there right now, CJ? Is that what you got up? Yeah, right there.
Yeah, this is our Bandcamp.
This is your Bandcamp. Okay.
Yeah.
Scroll that a little bit.
NoComposure.bandcamp.
And this is where everything is available, right?
Yeah, it's also got some like acoustic stuff that Meatbag did.
Nice.
And then Meatbag and I are recording a new acoustic EP right now.
Oh, this is an exclusive right here.
Which
This is a Rundown with Silva exclusive.
Which is going to be cool for fans of the AZ punk rock scene, because it's just covers of other AZ punk rock bands.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I love seeing stuff like that, especially right now, how hard it is to feel like you're part of a community when you're stuck at home.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a huge deal right now. And it's always cool to push the homies. That was a huge deal why the Rundown Roommates did the Just Moved In. We had 5 songs featuring 13 people from 8 different bands or something. That was a lot of fun, and it was really just because you love making music with your friends, and you love the music your friends make, especially out here, man. We have such a dope scene.
Yeah.
last thing before we start wrapping up, Elliot or Elliot, CJ, can you go to the Instagram again, please, if you don't mind? Now, right there, that picture of the dog,
Oh yeah, that's the executive vice president.
Colby.
Yes.
Okay, since I've met you years ago now, I've seen this dog. He's awesome. Can you give us the story of Colby a little bit?
Yeah. So
That's not him.
that's him.
Is that him?
Yeah, he's got his little taco.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was at the party. Well, actually, I got that for Halloween, but he didn't like wearing it too much. But I had that on him for a little bit because we had a taco truck, but he didn't like wearing that too much, and it was way too small because when I bought it, I didn't fucking know how it would look on him, but yeah, that's his little taco.
Well, how long have you had him? Like, where does this start?
Okay, so
What's up, Zeus?
my wife and I and stepdaughters, we had two big dogs, and one was exactly like Zeus. His name was Tyson, and every like house that we lived at, we weren't even really supposed to have dogs, but we just never told like the owner or the landlord like we had dogs, and so we had these two dogs, and then one night my wife and my stepdaughter, they went to get gas at QT, and there's like this guy that was trying to sell these puppies, and he had little Colby in his hand, maybe a month or two old, trying to like sell him. And it was like February, so it was like cold out and shit. This poor dog shivering and everything. So my stepdaughter like begged my wife, "Oh, I want this dog, like, I don't have a dog, the other girls have dogs and stuff." And so after going back and forth, they ended up getting this dog. And so at that time, the girls still lived with their dad. And so they bring this little dog, home, and I see it, and I'm like, what the fuck did you guys do? Jeremy, I'm going to keep him at my dad's, blah, blah, blah. And so they told me the whole story about how they felt so bad for this little dog. And so I'm like, all right. So, she gave him a bath, cleaned him up, got the ticks off of him and stuff. And so then she tried to take him to her dad's, and her dad said, no, like, we already have enough little dogs. You girls don't take care of them, blah, blah, blah. So he's like, get rid of them or I'm going to get rid of them. So then she calls my wife, oh, Dad won't let me have them, blah, blah, blah. So then my wife, we got to get Colby back, so I'm like, all right, fine. So we get this little dog back, and she named him Colby after this YouTube guy. So anyways, every time I'd have, rappers or bands over, like I'd put the dogs like either in the kitchen or in the room, and they were fine. Like they knew, okay, this is how it goes, and they just lay around. Where Colby would just whine and cry, and then he figured out how to jump over the baby gate and stuff. So I'm like, damn, this little asshole, So I would just have him in the room with me, like while I was recording, and he knew like to be quiet once they started singing or rapping or whatever, and he would either just lay on the floor, he'd lay on my lap, and until the session was done. And so he was around people his whole life, and eventually, as it happens, he became a nuisance, and he wasn't really potty trained, so he'd have accidents in the house, and he loved to eat the girls' underwear.
Oh, dogs love that shit.
And so they'd get so mad at him. And so then when we moved, and I had my own little guest house, the girls were like, Colby can be out there with you, you know. And so I'm like, okay. And so then for Father's Day, the girls made me a little card. And so one of the girls, you know, who wanted Colby so bad, made me a card, and she said, you know, Happy Father's Day. Colby's yours now.
Oh,
and so
man.
Colby was my Father's Day gift. And so
Look at that guy.
when I moved, you know, like it was just obvious to me that he was going to be with me. And so when they sent me the new place that I'm at, the actual facility, they sent me the contract to look over, and it was a bunch of bullshit. And so I read through it. And so then they're like, oh, you know, if there's any questions, you know, let us know. And I sent them an email, and I'm like, yeah, I've got one question. I'm like, I'm going to have my dog there. And they're like, okay. And so I kind of told them a little bit about the dog. And so they're like, all right, send me a picture of him. I'm like, okay. So I sent him a little picture. And then he talked to the owner, and they're like, okay. And so then they put in the contract that I could have Colby in there.
That's so sick.
And so, yeah, so it's his studio. I just work there.
Yeah, pretty much. He runs. It's so funny to watch him, like, he walks the studio with such confidence. Like, he sees someone setting up, he's like, just checking on you, making sure you got your hi-hat stands, you know.
So when we're doing the rundown video, you know, because anybody that's seen the video, it's all one shot. So we had to choreograph this thing great. So we had the door open so Elliot could just walk right in. And so there's so much going on and chaos and moving parts that Colby was just wandering around.
Yeah, he went to the liquor store for cigarettes or something.
Yeah.
The cops brought him back.
So he decided that he was going to leave and go in the road. And so I get this call, and then it just said private number. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not answering this. So I don't answer. And then a few minutes go by. We just hear, like, police department.
I thought it was a joke.
We're like, what the fuck? And then sure enough, the Phoenix Police Department are holding Colby. And I'm like, oh, my God, damn it. You know, like, you just feel so embarrassed.
I never seen him do that either, even at the old spot. Like, he never went past, like, the driveway or anything.
He'd always fucking... He'd go to the neighbors and he'd bark at their dog. And so the neighbors would fucking call and complain and text Tanya and stuff. He's a little asshole. And it's my own fault, because when he was little, like, we'd go on walks and we'd take out the trash, and it was just, he was so little and cute. Like, I never put a leash on him, and he stayed right by me. We'd walk around the whole block. We'd walk to Circle K, and he'd stay by me the whole time. But then he started getting a little braver, and he started going a little further.
Brave little Colby.
And so then when he figured out, oh, I can fit under the fucking gate, and I can fit through the bars, he would just go wander around. And then my wife would be like, Colby's out front. Why aren't you watching your fucking dog and stuff? And I'm like, oh, he's fine. You know, but people would be walking, you know, because it was a nice, quiet neighborhood. People go on walks. He'd bark at them. You know, he'd fucking chase people. And so I'm like, God damn it, Colby. So I'd have to put, like, this mesh stuff all around the
chicken wire almost.
Chicken wire, whatever I could find to keep him from fucking getting out, and he'd still get out, you know, but it contained him a little bit. And then, you know, he's so little, like, he kind of like looks at me. Okay. It goes a little further. I'm not yelling at him. And then he'll fucking dip under. And so now he goes wherever the fuck he wants, dude.
Jeremy, thank you for coming to do episode 1. Where can everyone find you?
My pleasure. I am on all social media. You can just search Cosmic Soup Recording. I am the only Cosmic Soup Recording there is. You can like me on Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter. every Sunday at 5, live at 5. I do my own little, wannabe podcast. It's just me talking with our friend Guyver. And that's been a blast. And, every once in a while I'll have Gio or Meatbag or someone. Or Silva just shows up.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I have some drinks and
completely
show up.
hammered. He comes but no, it was fun. That was one of the funnest ones we've done, and it's great. So you can go to Facebook to watch that. If you're interested in recording, you can shoot me a message. You can always go to CosmicSoupRecording.com, find out any information. Or you can call me or text me at 480-331-SOUP.
Awesome. And we're going to have those links in the description of the video and everything. Jeremy, thank you for coming.
Oh, my God. Thank you so much.
I love you, buddy. And
I love you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the first episode of The Rundown with Silva. And we will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye, everybody.
Yeah, the rundown with Silva. The rundown with Silva. The